Middle-earth is a world steeped in legend, where the fate of all is often determined by the powerful artifacts crafted by ancient hands. From the forging of the rings of power to the creation of swords and gems imbued with magical properties, these items are not mere tools but symbols of hope, strength, and at times, destruction. The stories of these artifacts are not just tales of craftsmanship, but of the destinies they shape, the heroes and villains they touch, and the ages they endure. The most well-known of these relics are often the most dangerous. The One Ring, a creation of pure malevolence by the Dark Lord Sauron, represents the seductive power of domination and control, a force that threatens to corrupt all who come into contact with it. In stark contrast, the three elven rings, forged by the elven smith Celebrimbor, embody the ideals of preservation, healing, and hope, standing as beacons against the encroaching darkness. Similarly, Anduril, the sword that once shattered and was reforged, is a symbol of the enduring strength of the rightful kings of Middle-earth, while Glamdring, Gandalf's sword, carries with it the wisdom and resilience of the wizard who wields it. But the history of these artifacts is far more than the mere fact of their existence. They are living stories, intertwined with the destinies of those who bear them and the ages in which they are shaped. Through them, we see the rise and fall of kingdoms, the struggles of ancient races, and the eternal battle between light and darkness. They reveal the complexity of choice, how even the most well-intentioned can fall prey to power's allure, and how, despite overwhelming odds, hope can endure. This exploration seeks to delve into the heart of these legendary artifacts, their creation, their significance, and the profound impact they had on the world of the Lord of the Rings. From the forging fires of Mount Doom to the shimmering halls of Rivendell, each relic tells a story, one of power, tragedy, and triumph. Through these artifacts, we will come to understand not only the history of Middle-earth, but also the lessons they offer to us all about the nature of power, responsibility, and the enduring struggle between good and evil. Aragorn's sword, Anduril. Aragorn's sword, Anduril, the Flame of the West, carries a legacy that stretches back millennia, connecting the ancient kingdoms of Númenor, Arnor, and Gondor, and ultimately marking the return of the true King of Men. Narsil, the precursor to Anduril, was forged in the First Age by the renowned dwarven smith Telchar of Nogrod. Narsil was created to be a mighty weapon for Elendil, the High King of Gondor and Arnor. The sword's legend began when Elendil wielded it in the War of the Last Alliance against the Dark Lord Morgoth. It was with Narsil that Elendil struck down many of Morgoth's followers, including orcs and trolls. When Elendil met his death in battle, the sword was shattered by the fall of the mighty king, a symbol of the breaking of the alliance. Despite its shattering, Narsil held great significance. Its pieces were preserved and passed down as an heirloom for generations. However, Narsil's greatest moment came during the final stand of Isildur, Elendil's son. When Sauron was defeated at the Battle of Dagorlad, Isildur took Narsil's broken blade and used its shard to cut the One Ring from Sauron's finger, destroying the Dark Lord's corporeal form. Despite the ring's corrupting power, Isildur's actions led to a temporary triumph, but the shards of Narsil lay dormant for years, symbolic of the broken reign of kings. The sword's rebirth came after centuries of exile, when Aragorn, a direct descendant of Isildur, was revealed to be the true heir to the throne of Gondor. At the Council of Elrond in Rivendell, the shards of Narsil were reforged by the elves into a new blade, now called Anduril, a symbol of Aragorn's claim to the throne and his readiness to defeat Sauron once more. This reforged sword would serve Aragorn throughout the War of the Ring, from the defense of Helm's Deep to the final confrontation with Sauron at the Black Gate. Anduril was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of hope for all those who fought against the Dark Lord's tyranny. Glamdring. Glamdring, also known as Beta or Foehammer, was one of the most storied swords in Middle-earth. Its origins trace back to the First Age, to the ancient elven city of Gondolin, a secret city hidden deep in the mountains, untouched by the reach of Morgoth's power. Turgon, the king of Gondolin, sought to prepare for the inevitable war with Morgoth and ordered the forging of weapons of great might. Among these was Glamdring, an elven sword of unparalleled craftsmanship, said to be forged by the elven smith Phial, though some sources attribute it to the work of the Gondolindrim themselves. Glamdring was a sword of great power, radiant and sharp, but its true significance was in the hands of its bearer. Gandalf, during his journey with Thorin Oakenshield and his company to reclaim the lonely mountain from Smaug, found Glamdring in a cave after a battle with trolls. The sword, though ancient, was still keen and unyielding. Gandalf claimed it as his own, and it would remain his faithful companion throughout the events of the War of the Ring. Much like the other ancient elven swords, Glamdring had a magical property. When orcish foes were near, it would glow with a cold light, alerting the wielder to danger. This ability proved invaluable during the journey of the Hobbit and in the defense of the Free Peoples in the wars to come. Gandalf's mastery of Glamdring, along with his wisdom and foresight, made it not just a sword, but a beacon of hope in dark times. The Palantiri, or Seeing Stones, were a remarkable invention created by the elven craftsmen of Valinor in the First Age. These 7 spherical stones allowed their users to communicate over vast distances, seeing places and people far away and even glimpsing events beyond the mortal realm. Their power was immense, yet it was not without risks. Originally created to help the elves maintain their dominion over Middle-earth, the Palantiri were later distributed among the great kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor as symbols of power. Each stone had its own special qualities, and while they could be used to communicate, they also allowed their users to witness events across time and space. The Palantir at Osgiliath, for example, allowed the rulers of Gondor to view all of Middle-earth, but it also allowed Sauron to manipulate the minds of those who gazed into it. The greatest tragedy of the Palantiri came when they fell into the hands of Sauron. After the fall of Gondor's northern kingdom Arnor and the decline of Osgiliath, the Palantir of Minas Ithil, later taken to Minas Morgul, came into Sauron's possession. He used the stone to trap the minds of those who sought it out, such as Saruman, who took the Palantir of Orthanc and fell under Sauron's influence. The stone at Orthanc would become a key factor in Saruman's betrayal. Desiring greater knowledge, Saruman tried to use the stone to communicate with Sauron, but instead, he was ensnared by the Dark Lord's will. This led to Saruman's fall into darkness as he sought to rival Sauron by forging his own army of Uruk-hai. Despite the corruption of some, the Palantir of Minas Tirith, used by Denethor, was significant in the battle against Sauron. However, Denethor, weak-minded and despairing, became obsessed with the visions of defeat the stone showed him, leading to his tragic downfall. The Silmarils. The Silmarils were 3 of the most coveted and beautiful jewels ever created in Middle-earth, and their story is one of the most tragic in the history of Arda. Feanor, the greatest of the Noldorin elves, forged the 3 Silmarils from the light of the 2 trees of Valinor, Telperion, and Lorelin. These gems were the brightest and purest of all creations, and became symbols of hope and beauty, even to the Valar themselves. The creation of the Silmarils, however, became the catalyst for Feanor's tragic fall. Consumed by pride and possessiveness, Feanor refused to allow anyone else to see or touch the Silmarils. This obsession led to Melkor, later called Morgoth, who was the greatest of the Valar but had fallen to evil, luring Feanor into a dangerous pact. Morgoth coveted the Silmarils for himself and sought to steal them, sowing discord between the elves and ultimately causing the first kinslaying at Alqualonda, where the Noldor turned against their own kin, the Teleri, to steal their ships in pursuit of Morgoth. Morgoth, in his jealousy and malice, stole the Silmarils, and this theft would be the spark that ignited the War of the Jewels. Feanor and his sons, bound by their oath to reclaim the Silmarils, pursued Morgoth to his fortress in Angband, where the 3 gems were kept. But Feanor's lust for the jewels led to death and tragedy, for Feanor himself was slain, and the Silmarils were lost. One Silmaril was captured by the elf king Thingol of Doriath, who coveted its beauty and placed it in a necklace, the Norglemir. However, the Silmaril's power brought only destruction. Dwarves from Nogrod killed Thingol to take the gem, and the resulting conflict between elves and dwarves led to a century-long war. The final fate of the Silmarils is both sorrowful and redemptive. One was lost in the depths of the sea, one was cast into the fires of Mount Doom, and one remained upon the brow of Eärendil, the mariner who sailed the skies, bearing the last of the light of the Silmarils to the Valar, who intervened in the War of Wrath. The Phial of Galadriel. The Phial of Galadriel is one of the most cherished and revered artifacts in Middle-earth, a gift given to Frodo Baggins as he embarked on his perilous journey to destroy the One Ring. This phial contained the light of Eärendil's star, the brightest of all the stars in the night sky, which was itself the Silmaril recovered by Eärendil in the First Age. Galadriel, the Lady of Lothlorien, had long been one of the most powerful and wise beings in Middle-earth. Her gift to Frodo was symbolic of her role as a protector and guide, offering not just a weapon, but a light in the darkness. The light from the phial was magical, capable of warding off evil, and it became invaluable to Frodo during his journey through the mines of Moria, when the Fellowship was attacked by Durin's Bane, and later in the Dead Marshes, where Gollum led Frodo and Samwise. The phial's light also represented the hope of Middle-earth, the hope that even in the darkest times there was the possibility of salvation. This light helped Frodo resist the growing influence of the One Ring and allowed him to confront the darkness of Shelob without succumbing to despair. The One Ring. The One Ring is, without a doubt, the most significant artifact in the Lord of the Rings saga. Forged by the Dark Lord Sauron in the fires of Mount Doom, the One Ring was created to dominate and control all of Middle-earth. It contained a large portion of Sauron's own power, and its creation was the ultimate act of tyranny. Sauron's goal was to use the ring to dominate the other rings of power, which were distributed among the elves, dwarves, and men. By controlling the One Ring, Sauron would be able to control the minds of all those who bore the other rings, turning them into mere slaves to his will. The ring's allure was powerful. It granted its bearers unnatural longevity, great power, and the ability to dominate others with a mere thought. Throughout the centuries, many tried to wield the One Ring for their own purposes, but none could resist its corrupting influence. Isildur, despite the ring's temptation, failed to destroy it when he had the chance, and so the ring survived for centuries, hidden away in the dark places of Middle-earth. When Bilbo Baggins stumbled upon the ring in the caves of Gollum, it was a moment of fate. Frodo Baggins would eventually inherit the ring, tasked with the burden of destroying it in the fires where it was forged, but the ring's power was not easily undone, and its pull on Frodo was strong. The 3 Elven Rings. The 3 Elven Rings were forged by Celebrimbor, the greatest elven smith of the Second Age, under the tutelage of Sauron, who had deceived the elves into creating the Rings of Power. However, the elves were able to craft the 3 rings independently, without Sauron's direct involvement. These rings were the most powerful of the lesser rings, and unlike the other rings, they were used for purposes of healing and preservation, not domination. Narya, the Ring of Fire, was the most significant of the 3 because it was passed to Gandalf after Círdan, the Master of the Grey Havens, recognized Gandalf's potential. The ring was associated with hope, resistance to despair, and the strength to fight for what is good. Gandalf's use of the ring was key in the battles against Sauron. Vilya, the Ring of Air, was the most powerful of the 3, although its abilities were never fully revealed. Its primary powers included preservation, protection, and healing. Elrond, the Lord of Rivendell, wielded this ring, using its powers to create a sanctuary for the elves and protect them from the forces of darkness. Nenya, the Ring of Water, was worn by Galadriel, the Lady of Lothlorien, and was central to the preservation of her realm. Nenya's powers allowed Galadriel to keep Lothlorien hidden and unchanged, a place of peace and timeless beauty, untouched by the decay that ravaged the rest of Middle-earth. These rings were the last bastions of hope for the free peoples of Middle-earth, using their power not to rule, but to preserve and protect, offering a last desperate defense against the spread of evil. They were instrumental in the resistance against Sauron, even as the One Ring loomed as the central threat to the world. Conclusion. The artifacts of Middle-earth are not merely objects of power, they are the heart of the world's most significant stories. From the creation of the One Ring, which represents the corrupting force of evil, to the noble 3 elven rings, symbolizing preservation, healing, and hope, each relic carries with it a deeper meaning that transcends its physical form. These objects shape the fate of kings, wizards, and warriors, as well as the entire history of Middle-earth. They are reminders that even the greatest powers can be both a blessing and a curse, and the choices made in wielding them can determine the future of all who inhabit this world. Anduril, Glamdring, the Phial of Galadriel, and the Silmarils are just a few of the countless artifacts whose histories intertwine with those of heroes and villains alike. Some bring hope, while others tempt with the promise of unimaginable power. Their legacies speak to the enduring struggle between light and darkness, order and chaos, and the complex nature of good and evil in Tolkien's universe. Ultimately, the most powerful artifacts are those that remind us of our own humanity, that it is not the strength of the weapon, but the wisdom and the heart of the wielder that shapes the course of history. Whether through the light of the Phial of Galadriel, guiding Frodo through the darkness, or the defiance of Gandalf using Narya to inspire resistance against despair, these objects are symbols of the eternal battle against the forces that seek to overwhelm the world. In the end, the greatest lesson to take from these relics is the power of choice. The history of Middle-earth is full of individuals who, in possessing these powerful artifacts, faced a choice: to succumb to the temptation of power, or to use it wisely and selflessly for the greater good. It is this choice, made time and again by those who rise above their flaws and fears, that defines the true heroes of Tolkien's legendarium. The journey through the artifacts of Middle-earth is a journey through the world itself, a world of great beauty and sorrow, light and shadow, hope and despair. As we reflect on the power and significance of these objects, we are reminded that the true power lies not in the objects themselves, but in how we choose to wield them. The legacy of these artifacts will live on as long as the stories of Middle-earth are told, inspiring all who encounter them to think about the choices they face in their own lives and the kind of world they wish to create.